谢。Okay, let's welcome Peter and Kathy.
I think you're wrong on this one, Peter. I think you're totally wrong on this one. Why Pony Ma didn't acquire Instagram? Not because Pony doesn't speak English.
I'm very happy to be in China, to be in India.
When you want to acquire another company state, do they want to sell it to them? There's a lot of resistance. So don't label us as pessimistic.
China should be much more optimistic than it is.
Yeah, I think, as we give the souvenir today, that everybody should have a dream. What if that dream comes true?
You would rather be the head of a rooster than the tail of a phoenix. That's in our blood. That's called entrepreneurship.
The Chinese market has been so big that it's been natural for people to be focused internally. It's also quite a competitive market, so if you go with the rest of the world, maybe you take over the world, but maybe you lose China.
If you look at the statistic, what are the great companies are invested by this corporate venture capital? Very, very little.
Very, very little.
Very, very. Facebook invested by corporate venture.
Pretty huge
Ooh.
for each deal.
Yeah, but they don't have good judgment like Peter and I, right? On one hand, there are not many great companies in this world, so you should not invest in a lot. You just focus on the great one. Only swing when you hit a very nice ball coming at you. That's one sort. But the other sort is, the money you can lose is limited. But the upside is huge, so you should invest a lot of companies, see which one can win. So this different strategy. And I know you are very focused. And tell me why, please.
A very diversified portfolio often gets justified by saying it's all a matter of luck. You can't figure things out.
Law of large number.
And this question of luck is very, very important. But I think it can mean one of two different things. Luck can be a statement about the nature of the universe, that the universe is random and it's unpredictable, what companies succeed, what investments succeed, and so you play the law of large numbers. That's one interpretation of luck. The second version of luck is that luck is just a statement of our laziness. And we say that it's a matter of luck when we don't want to do the work to figure out what's really going on. And if we did more work, there would be less left to luck or chance. And so I have found that whenever I look at a company and I say, I'm not really sure if this is going to work, let me just write a smaller check here and see what happens. When I think that I'm playing the lottery, I've already psychologically set myself up to lose money.
Yeah, I totally agree. My hero is Warren Buffett. He says, if you're not willing to put 10% of your total net worth in that company, don't invest in that company. That means you have to be certainly sure this one is going to fly.
面对浩如烟海的创业者，彼得、蒂尔和徐新怎么能慧眼识珠？20年的风投生涯，徐新投资的其中2位创业者都在2015年福布斯华人富豪榜前50。作为电子商务支付公司 PayPal 的联合创始人，蒂尔最知名的身份还是投资者。2004年，他投资了一位从来没有正式工作过的哈佛大二学生50万美元，成为 Facebook 的首位外部投资者。在这个鼓吹全民创业、热血投资的年代，每一个投资者都想投入一个伟大的企业。初出茅庐的企业能靠什么成为他们眼中的潜力股？
How you find this is the right guy, this is a guy to build a great company. Yeah, at the very moment, even at the time, and he's nothing, or he's obviously undervalued.
When we invested in NetEase, William Ding, he was 28 years old. The company goes through a lot of down cycle, but he sees something other people cannot see. I wouldn't say he has the best talent in managing people or anything like that, but he just have one thing. That one thing is he sees things other people cannot see. He created the category. He's the first guy who did it in China. The team starting from scratch doing the MMO project is proprietary. doing it first is very important. Another guy you mentioned, Richard Liu, he is the founder CEO of JD.com. When I met him for the first time, 2006, it was a small company, 50 people, 50 million RMB. He was like ranking number 12 or number 11. But what he impressed me is that he has killer instinct. He sees something other people cannot see. He's the first one. He's not just Amazon of China, copied Amazon. He's Amazon plus UPS. He just sensed that 75% of the complaint comes from one thing and one thing only. That's delivery. So he started to build a delivery. Costs a lot of money, burning a lot of money, but he had the guts to do it.
I agree with this very strongly. I think that, and I think in fact, if you have the killer instinct and the sort of one big idea that has not yet been seen by other people, that combination, it makes up for a lot of shortcomings. And then conversely, if you do not have a killer instinct and do not have one good idea, you can get everything else perfect and it will still not be enough.
If you see this person, you see you are comfortable, this model is going to work, this business, big idea, you say, this idea is great. But this person is kind of, it's like if you 0 to 100 is a full score, this guy in terms of the killer instinct, people skill, whatever, probably he's like 70 to 75. Would you invest on him?
I'd be tempted not to invest.
What's the reality? Did you invest in those guys or did you not?
Occasionally I have, but...
What's the result of those occasions?
There are certain types of consumer products where the idea is so powerful that even if the people are not perfect, it can work very well. So I've, for example, been a critic of Twitter, which I think is a horribly mismanaged company, but it has, but the core idea was very simple and it just worked. You could say Facebook, Entrepreneur 95, business strategy was actually pretty weak initially. Didn't really know how they were going to make money. They were just going to get users, and they sort of were able to learn that over time. So that was one where that didn't matter that much. It's talent, product, business strategy, but the weighting you put on all three varies a little bit depending on the nature of the company.
在蒂尔看来，有杀手本能的企业家会在行业中不断做出新尝试，达到创新垄断。他带领团队投资的企业大多是行业中的创造性垄断者。YouTube、领英、特斯拉、YOUKU都是近10年来各自领域中第一个吃螃蟹的人。然而，蒂尔所推行的垄断论在中国却遭遇了水土不服。创意和知识产权意识薄弱，让新的创意出现后，瞬间便被无数人复制，从而卷入肉搏战式的竞赛之中。此情此景之下，徐新则更看重细分领域下的微创新。在他眼中，迅速的价格战可以定成败。
At least 70% of this kind of the coverage about monopoly. You mentioned monopoly a lot, right? There are two kinds of monopoly things. And one is, we call it creative monopoly, and the other is kind of the defensive monopoly. How we can justify or how we can predict if the monopolist will be creative or defensive.
We don't want static monopolies where they just are like a tax collector or a toll collector and just extract value and restrict supply. And so I think it's creative as long as things are dynamic. If you do something new and you keep doing new things, or other people keep doing new things, you have one creative monopoly after another potentially. If it becomes very static, that's often an indication that it's become a bad monopoly. And so I think it's not that easy to get. Sometimes you have to compete to get a monopoly, so it's not a straightforward thing to do. But you want to have profits at the end, high profit margins, and you only get that if you somehow have put an enormous distance between yourself and everybody else.
Yeah, I want to echo Peter's point. I think monopoly is awesome. We love monopoly. In China, we do not have the luxury to invest a lot of creative monopoly guy, because most of us are copycats. Let's face it, copycats. So you're copycats, we're copycats. So let's compete who are stronger in execution, who are better in kind of micro innovation. In the US, if you great idea, everybody jumping on this great idea, and if they don't get the creative guy, they back off. But in China, if there's one great guy, it's like 20 people doing it. All these 20 people get money. and they're competing each other on execution and then burning money. Ultimately, it's only one or two guys can win. Number one, number two. Then they're doing price war, endlessly price war, fundraising, and then endless fundraising. And there's nobody who's doing innovation because they cannot afford to do so. The founders normally working 14 hours a day. They look 10 years older than they are. They start to grow pimples on their face because the competition is so fierce. You work 100 hours every week because of competition. And then I watch US. What happens next? What's the end of the game? The end result is number one merge with number two. And then they get into monopoly. How did you do this merger with this other strong guy, Elon Musk? You guys did the equal merger, right?
The company I started, Confinity, and the company X.com that Elon had started in March of 2000, the companies were 4 blocks down the street from each other in downtown Palo Alto. So it was the most ferocious competition you could imagine, where the competition was literally 4 blocks down the street, and you had it was extremely motivating for people. So I think competition does make people work harder, and so it was the hardest people ever worked during the 2 to 3 months that you had this crazy competition. Both companies were, we had about $15 million in the bank. The burn rate was $10 million per month. There were many challenges with the merger because it's like they each had 60
Whose
people.
idea is it? Your idea or his idea?
Some of both. It sort of, I think Elon suggested we meet, then we met, and then
Who approached who?
it was Bill Harris, who was working with Elon, reached out to us, and then we got together for dinner and we talked about it, and then
You got a matchmaker in between, or it's just you go to him?
as one of the people who was working with Elon at the time reached out. But I don't want to exaggerate the importance of this. You basically combined. The combination was definitely, there were some challenges with it. It turned out to be very critical at the time.
So is this merger a real solution for competition and create a new monopoly empire? Then let's look at Meituan versus Dianping. And let's look at Ganji versus Wuba. Does it make sense for them to merge? And what would be the decision-making factor? Let's say if Ganji and Wuba merge, they're going to have 90% market share, for sure. They will save $250 million marketing cost that goes straight to profit. And they don't have to raise so much money, dilute everybody. And they can have a much better life, go for other business. So let's say if they merge.
I think mergers are only a short-term solution. I agree with this. I think in the long run, to have a sustainable monopoly, I think there are 4 things I outlined in my book. There are probably some other ways you can do it, but the 4 are a deep technological advantage that somehow cannot be copied for whatever reason. Secondly, network effects, where the networks are very powerful. So marketplaces, things like that have that. Social networks have it to some extent. Third, is economies of scale. We just get to such a big scale. Amazon in the US is at such a big scale that it's very hard for other e-commerce companies to compete. And the 4th one that I always find hard to understand, but I think is very important, is brand.
无论是微创新企业，还是欧美从0到1发展起的创新垄断企业，在达到行业顶尖的位置后，似乎都开始到陌生的战场上乱碰运气。比尔自己都无法理解，他推崇的 Facebook 和 Google 在取得绝对垄断地位之后，为何要在新领域陷入从1到N的血腥竞争。
国重新开始看，知道吗？这是一个巨大的进步。中国历史革命的革命，绝对的，你相信我，中国历史革命。
Well, there's always a temptation these companies have to compete with the other companies around them, and it's always hard to judge how often you should do this or not. My judgment is they do it too much. So, if you go back a decade in the U.S., Microsoft was trying to build a search engine like Google. Google was trying to build office products like Microsoft. Both companies failed at breaking into each other's territory, and it created an opening for Apple to become the biggest company.
See what Facebook is doing to Snapchat. See what Alibaba is doing to WeChat and JD.com, and how WeChat and Alibaba are competing with each other. So that's kind of the destiny that ultimately all of this kind of the creative monopolists will do some kind of really bloody computation.
In China, if you look at the BAT or the other guys, for example, Baidu is a search engine, Tencent is social networking, and Alibaba is e-commerce. But they are all getting into each other's territory. Why is that? I wonder why is that? It's because once they are all Chinese market. They all focus on homogeneous market. For the US guy, if it's Facebook, go to the world, go to Europe, go to Japan, go to BRIC, China, India. So they can go international. But Chinese big guys, I don't know why, they cannot go international. I live in Hong Kong now, I use WhatsApp. Compared to WeChat, that product sucks. But why WeChat is not taking over the world? It's a much better product. Why Pony Ma didn't acquire Instagram? Not because Pony doesn't speak English or he doesn't have the money to do it, it's because the power of the brand of the nation. When you want to acquire another company states, do they want to sell it to you? There's a lot of resistance. You have to wait for the time to come. When China becomes number one by 2020, number one economic power. And then at that time, people will at least look at us equally with some respect.
So let me, I'm not going to disagree with anything you said, but let me just add one or two thoughts. So the Chinese market has been so big that it's been natural for people to be focused internally. It's also quite a competitive market. So if you lose the focus on China, you might if you go with the rest of the world, maybe you take over the world, but maybe you lose China. And so it's also maybe perceived to be dangerous to expand outside of China. So if I had to make a negative prediction on the BAT companies, is that if you divide them as e-commerce, social networking, and messaging, or they will not be able to get into each other's sectors in China. They will spend a lot of money trying to, and all three of them will fail.
Absolutely, you think they should focus on what they're good at and go vertical instead of horizontally expanding.
Either do new things, maybe expand internationally, but certainly if they try to do the list of 6 things they can do, each of them can do the 2 things the other 2 are doing. Each of the 3 can do the 2 things the others are. Those 6 will all fail. That is a prediction I will make today.
当全球化逐渐成为一场抄袭的盛宴，从中国制造到中国山寨成了一个尴尬的话题。大家逐步厌弃山寨的国货，转而去日本抢购马桶盖，去美国排队买手机。陷入困境的中国制造是否会遭遇硬着陆？各行各业弥漫着担忧的情绪。蒂尔笑言，当所有国家都在担心着中国的崛起时，唯有中国担心着这个崛起是否能真的实现。
Definite pessimistic is you have definite ideas of what to do. And they're basically, and many of the times it will be to copy things that already work. But you're pessimistic in the sense that you do not think you can do anything that's much better than that. I think China is very definite. It's debatable how pessimistic it is. I think it's a little bit pessimistic, but very definite.
I think you're wrong on this one, Peter. Yeah, I think you're totally wrong on this one. I was thinking why US has all the creative technology. Most 95% of the creative technology happen in the US. But I think we have 2 good things. That will be enough for you to catch up. One is the entrepreneurship of these people in China. When we were young, we were taught with the culture, you would rather be the head of a rooster than the tail of a phoenix. That's in our blood. That's called entrepreneurship. And look at the number of SMEs in China. 70 million SMEs. I think that's one thing we are blessed with. Number two, we have a big home market, particularly mobile internet. I think in the mobile internet, with the sheer size and intensity of the using hours, I think we can lead the world, just doing something 0 to 1. And another thing is that, look at the future. We have 1.2 million university graduates, 7.2 million university graduates. Out of that, about 1.5 million are engineers. How many US have engineers? Maybe 150,000, 200,000 maximum. With that, we got all the coders, coding guys. So I think because of that, we should be able to have the 0 to 1.
Well, I think China should be much more optimistic than it is.
So don't label us as pessimistic.
But I think, look, one easy way to show that a country is pessimistic is that it saves a lot of money. The US, people save 0%. They save far too little because they think the future will be fine. They don't need to worry about things. In China, people save something like 40%. And that reflects that people have been through a very...
Oh, that one, Peter, let me just give you a little bit more information. We do consumer study every year. We interview 20,000 consumers every year. The saving rate of 40% are the older people, the 60s, they're born in 60s. The post-80 generation, totally different. They are big spenders. You know, I can tell you a middle-class consumer in China with a household income 5,000 RMB, nuclear family, husband, wife, and kids. The husband could be a driver, the wife could be an elementary school teacher, 5,000 RMB. They spend all the money they have. Why? Because they feel very secure.
There may be a very big change that's happening, but I would say the macroeconomic number to look at is the savings rate. If the savings rate goes down, that indicates people are becoming more optimistic. And so if the younger people have a lower savings rate, then I think there is more optimism. And certainly the entrepreneurs are optimistic. I don't question that. You have to be optimistic to start a new company. But there is a way in which China is perhaps a little bit more pessimistic than it really needs to be for all the reasons you give.
无论中国人是悲观还是乐观，可以确信的残酷真相是，如果没有锐度创新，中国企业必然无法流量的扩展，实现质的突围，更不能实现垄断。长期挣扎于从一到 N 的中国创业者，未必不愿与创新开辟疆界，找到两者之间的平衡，让中关村成为下一个硅谷。放眼要创中国第一 VC 品牌的徐新，也试图寻找在这片土地上实现从零到一的路径。
Why all the great ideas, technology innovation was created in the United States, not in Europe, not in Japan, not in China yet? Why is that? It's not that we don't want to invest in company which is 0 to 1. It's that not many in China. Not many in China.
You are a very developed country, if you're at the frontier, like the US, Western Europe, Japan, that's where you need to do new things. If you are a developing country, there's a lot you can gain from copying. So it's not a critique of China to say that China has copied a lot. That was the natural thing to do, it was the easy thing to do. And there's some point, as China catches up to the US and Western Europe, there's some point in the years ahead where China will need to do new things, and if it does not do new things, it will have a fate similar to that of Japan. Japan copied the US very effectively, it caught up, but then it was not able to really do much new once it had caught up.
I'm thinking that if China one day will become the largest economy power in the world, we should be more open about, bring other people to our country. All the young people, smart people want to be here. It's a huge economy, huge market. They can start their own business. They feel comfortable in language and culture. So is that the time that we can imagine that will be the time China will have prosperous 0 to 1 type of culture?
Immigration, I think it's always more of a marker than anything else. The fact that so many people wanted to move to the US told you there was something very powerful, that people thought they could do new things in the US, that this was a place where you could push the frontier in different ways, and that it was so appealing to many talented people to emigrate to the US throughout the 20th century, I think was very important. People often ask, how can you copy Silicon Valley? And it's, again, not an easy question. Even if you ask the question, why does Silicon Valley work? It's hard to say. Is it the weather, the universities, is it the history? It's probably some combination of all of these. But I think once you get a system working, it can have a lot more momentum. Once you see people succeed in doing new things, they become a role model for other people to copy and emulate over time.
In your understanding, how many percentage of the entrepreneurs in the world have this kind of the disruptive thinking mindset without any education? Or yes, how many percentage of entrepreneurs may have this kind of the skills?
By far, the majority of the companies are very imitative. They involve very little innovation, and there are very few that involve big innovation. But I would argue that the companies that are really valuable, of the companies that really succeed, far more of them involve these big breakthroughs than simply involve copying. And so to be enormously successful, it is critical to do something new, and that's worked the best among the ones that have really succeeded.
优酷老友记的老朋友们，大家好，我是徐新，请扫描二维码，官方微信，参加这个 Open Day 的活动，可以面对面分享我的故事。
创业街，中国重新开始看，知道吗？这是一个巨大的机会。中国历史革命的转折点，绝对的，你相信我，中国历史革命。
What is the biggest fear in your mind at the current moment?
As an investor, I was thinking about what was the fear I had, couldn't sleep at night. I can tell you now I don't have any, but I used to have one. I feel like I've been to hell. I know what the hell looks like, so I have no fear. I had a very strong heart.
I think that the biggest thing I would like to work on more is finding a cure to aging, disease, all sorts of diseases. And this is sort of and every time I think about this as a problem, all of us, myself included, are not doing nearly enough because we deal with mortality and death through a strange combination of acceptance and denial. Acceptance, we're all going to die, there's nothing we can do about it. Denial, we're not going to die anytime soon, so I'm not going to worry about it. And I think instead of acceptance or denial, we should be trying to fight it a little bit more.
老朋友就是一壶酒，越喝越长